welcome to my channel. This channel is all about Unreal for new and intermediate developers. Check it out and see if there's anything of use to you. This channel is driven by you as viewers, so please leave your comments below. Thank you. Hello and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome to my channel. Today is the start of a new series. I envisage this series being quite long and possibly one that we may stop and return to as and when we think of things to add to it. This series is we're going to make the rudiments of a cooking game. I'll give you a little insight of what we're going to be doing. And I would say this is possibly for advanced beginner to late, to early intermediate and above. Not really for the raw beginner, but yeah, give it a try. And I'm on my Discord. If you have a problem, just give me a call or send me a comment. Okay, so here's a quick rundown of what we are going to be attempting. Basically, we got a physics-based pickup system, so we can, and our message system, press to, I haven't set the thing in here, but we can do various things. So E, and see it's physics-based because it knocked that over here, and we got things like we can pour the liquid. Using our scroll wheel, we can place things down. Using E, we can pick it up and it rights itself in the hand to the right position. We have a stove here. We can turn the stove on. Using our scroll wheel, we can see it gets brighter and duller, independent of each other. And that's also going to be able to talk to whatever's on the stove, and if you're low heat, it'll know it's on low heat. If you're on high heat, it'll know it's on high heat. Say we can pick up small items, and if we pick up small items, they're a little bit closer to you, so you can use a knife or whatever for cutting or spreading your butter. And we've also got, if I'm hitting the right keys, we've also got different ingredients which you're going to be able to interact with. So like E to pick it up, you can drag it over, drop it in the toaster, and it will put it in the toaster in the correct way. And we can press the mouse button and down comes our toast with a little sound effect. Or down goes our bread. And we pop it up, and you can see if I E, or you can pick up the toast, you can see it's actually changed the static mesh. And as in real life, you wouldn't really be able to put the toaster down if it's already got cooked bread in it. You don't want to burn our toast, but we can just continue to add toast to that toaster. I haven't done anything with the button here, but maybe that's something we can add if people want it. So we can pick up our bird. Don't worry about the boxes you see on the top here. These were just for development. I haven't turned them off. I'll show you how to turn them on and off, just so that you know that when you're developing stuff, you can see where your collision boxes are for certain things. So this is an idea of what we're going to be doing. I've also, just for a bit of fun, in this one I've actually changed my character a little bit, just for a little bit of fun. If you want me to show you how to do that, please do. I'm using the 5.7 preview for this, but this should work on other versions. The only thing I notice is different, and I think it's 5.6 as well, is the way you set your character up for first person to be a true first person character, i.e. you can look down and see yourself. So it's not just a pair of arms, you can see your shadows and so on and so forth. Earlier versions were just the arms. Okay, so without further ado, let's get on with it. Okay, so here we are in our startup screen for a 5.7, or you can say 5.6, use whatever you like. And in this video, we're basically going to be setting up the project, making up a load of folders, seeing what the time is, maybe make up a few data assets, so on and so forth. So there's nothing exciting happening here, but all essential work when you set up a project. So let's go to games. Going to make a first person. Just going to use Blueprint only for now. Maybe later on we're going to dip our toes into some C++. We can always change the project over. Okay. I'm going to give it a name. YT for YTube underscore cooking. Actually, just for a bit of fun, call it crazy cooking. Okay, we're going to go ahead and create a project. I'm going to pause the video while it does all its shaders and stuff, save some time. I'm going to go ahead, click create, and I'll see you in a moment. Okay, so here we are in our project, just a blank default project. Nothing special, no plugins, other than what comes with the project. Okay, and you know, as per normal, you can play in project. You can see it says I'm using the standard mannequins, so just to show you that everything we do, we can do on the mannequin. I will be doing a little bit of change for our character when we get to that part, just to sort of take away some of the stuff that we don't use. Okay. So let's get to it. So first things first, we're going to be doing most of our work in our content drawer. Let's make a game folder. And you can call this game, you can call it whatever you like. I like to call it with a name similar to the project, so we call it Crazy Cooking. Because I want to try and add a few fun elements to this game as well, not a serious, straightforward sim. And as often, I like to, for my main folder, I like to set the color on it. Let's choose on green for today's project. And the other thing I like to do is right click the project and somewhere in here add to favorites. So it shows up in here. So no matter what depth of beyond you've ended up getting yourself into inside of Unreal Engine and you want to get back to a project, you just double click that and away you go. So here we are in our empty basic project folder. I'm just going to set out the basic folder structure for now, and we'll add to them as the project goes along and as we need to add to them. And we're going to make up some basic classes. Okay, so the first folder we're going to make is blueprints. In this folder and many other folders and other folders, we're going to add subfolders. Oops. Space. Make another folder, we can call it data. Make another folder, we call it UI. And what else do I normally have as my basic folders? Base game. I'm sure there's another one. Yeah, so we're going to have another folder called meshes, like any imported meshes. Another folder called materials. Material, and one more folder for now anyway. We're going to call it input which is going to handle our input keys that we may or may not add. And let's add another one, actually one more folder. We're going to call it effects, which we're going to put our sound and video effects in it. Okay, so this folder's, this system, this game, this whatever you want to call it, this project is going to be heavily using Blueprint parent and child hierarchy. The reason I've chosen this is because when I sat there and thought about the project and scribbled it out on a notepad, I realized that there are many different items within the project. You have appliances like your stove and your toaster. You have utensils like knives, spoons, so on and so forth. You have ingredients. Okay. You have containers, which act differently depending on what you want to do with them. So we really want to be able to not carry all of the same data on every single item, because some require more meshes than others, and it just makes the file bigger than necessary, marginally. It also makes it makes it a little bit easier to separate anything that's specific to specific types. This is why we're going to use the child hierarchy. We're also going to do the same we're going to heavily use data assets, which I find probably a little bit easier to manage than data table. And using a data asset, the good thing about them is if we need to, we can actually run code within them as well. And we can cast them, we can do all sorts of things with data assets that we can't necessarily do with a data table. So we're going to heavily use them, but also we're going to be using a child hierarchy on those, because there are going to be some things that every category needs. There could be other things that only one category needs. For example, let me think. So for example, when you're cooking food, so could you say we've got a subclass of data asset for the ingredients. We're going to want to know what mesh we're going to use, or material, depending on how that particular one works out, is going to use once it's cooked, or in multiple ways of cooking. We can actually, if we wanted to, have different stages of cooking. So if we're doing like a steak restaurant where people can have their steak blue, medium, so blue rare, medium rare, so on and so forth, you could have many different meshes depending on how the customer ordered their steak. So, but you wouldn't want that sort of thing, and you don't need that in a pot or a spoon or a knife. Okay? But in your knives, you want to know whether the knife has different abilities, whether it's like a chef's knife for cutting, whether you can spread things with it. And if you can spread with it, maybe have an array of things inside there. What can you spread with it? Okay. So that's how we're going to use our structure. So it takes a little longer to set up, but once you get into it, it's no different than doing it just with plain actors. So what we're going to do is, in our blueprint folder, we're going to set up our first actor. We're going to set up our first actor and our first database. So a data asset. So we're going to do a data asset first, because we need to put that into the actor. So we're going to go to our data folder, we're going to right click, we're going to go to blueprint class, we're going to go to all classes, and we're going to search for data asset, and you want the one that says data asset. One data asset. Okay. We're going to select that. Okay, I'm just going to call this DA for data asset. We're going to call it base. To enthusiastic with my caps lock. And we've just got this. Let's go ahead and make sure we save everything. Here, I don't know whether it's because I'm recording. Okay, so we're going to open up our data asset. Let me do one project setting. Also, this might help you. I absolutely hate it when the default setting for Unreal is everything opens in a new window. You might like it, but me personally, I absolutely hate it. So I normally go into that instance in editor preferences. Always have to think. And the first thing we're going to do is look for appearance, scroll down, and look for this setting here, asset editor open location. We're going to put it as main window. Go ahead and close that. So now when I open up our data asset again, it's just a tab of our main window, which is exactly what we want. Okay, so if you get this blank screen, look for the blue link here, open full blueprint editor. You need to get in here. For those of you that don't know, the data asset literally stores a bunch of variables that we can access and read. You can write to a data asset, but it will make a global change. So everything that's using that data asset will now possibly have that change. So it's not good practice. It's good practice to treat these as a read only, or to run any specific functions. I mean, if we right click in the data asset here, we've got just the same as a normal actor. Okay. But mostly we're going to be using it for basic setup. So I'm just going to bring up my project on the other screen. I can remember what we put in here so I don't lead you all up the garden path. Okay, that's it, base. Okay, we have quite a lot of things in it, and I'll try and explain them as we do. But first of all, I'm going to make all the different variables and go ahead and tell you if there's anything different we have to do. Okay, so the first one we're going to do is a static mesh. And obviously it's going to be a static mesh. Now, often I like to use soft object references and load them, but I found for this game, because we're always changing the meshes, it actually works out easier and better just to use an object reference. The other thing I like to set here is save compile on success only. So keep remembering to save. And the next one we're going to use is item name. Pretty standard stuff, like text. Technically, for efficiency, we should really use the name here. It's a little bit more efficient, but we're really only going to be using item name in UI, so you'd have to convert it anyway, so I don't see too much difference. Description. Again, type text. Item icon. Again, something we're going to be using when we get around to UI systems. And this is going to be a texture. 2D. And we're going to use the soft option. Soft object option for that. Because in UMG, the UI system for Unreal, you can directly use a soft option without having to load it first into an image or border. It will load it for you, so you don't have any extra steps. I just realised why my computer's running slow. I've got lots of versions of this. So this one we're going to put in here, this one's just in case, really. Sometimes we import messages and they're tiny and we can't be bothered to sort them out, but we should really. Mescal, we'll go through default values in a moment. So we could use this Mescal to actually change it for us. A couple of oddball ones now coming out. Well, not oddball ones, but we're going to have one called interaction key, which we may change later on and get the interaction key dynamically. But for this one, we're going to leave it as it is, and that's a text. We have another one called interaction message. And these are what you saw when I pointed at something. It says press blah blah blah. Okay. And this one is just to help when we're formatting the messages. This one is a Boolean. It's going to be called use press, and that's going to be a Boolean. Okay, we're going to compile these. Let's look at any. We have one more, but for that one we need to make an enum. Now I like to use enums quite a lot because I find them a lot easier when you're setting up all your different objects, makes things a bit quicker for you. Also, there's a lot less risk of, if I'd make this one like a string, which would be better, or a name, then you've got to manually type it. And if you've made a spelling mistake and then you try and get it somewhere down the line and you can't get it, and you have to go back and find out where the problem is. Using an enum, you can't make a mistake anywhere down the line, because if you made a spelling mistake in the first place, that spelling mistake will be on the list, so as long as you recognize it, you can use it. Okay, so we're going to go to our data folder here. We're going to make 2 new folders. We're going to call this one enums and structs. Keep them all together. We're going to make another folder just to tidy things up. We're going to call this data. Data assets. So we're going to drag this. Oops, dear me. We're going to drag this into here, move it into there, neaten it up. So we're going to open up our enums and structs. Then we're going to put in a new folder called enums. Remember, we haven't got any structs, so we'll leave that. We're going to right click in that folder and we're going to look for blueprint in the list, not up here, down in the list. There we go, third, fourth one down, blueprint. We're going to look down for enumeration. All enumeration is a list. We're going to call this E underscore E for enumeration. Oops. Game item types. And just so that I'm getting the right one, I'm going to copy it off my other project. Now, often with enumerators, depending on really what they're used for, but often I like to have a null or a not available or not applicable default first enumerator. It just means that if you don't need it, it puts this one category in, so that later on in the game, if you're trying to do a search using that enum as a reference, you can say, if it's not NA, I want to search it, or if it is NA, I just want them. So it gives it like a wider group where you don't necessarily need to identify everything. So let's add a few enums, just add a few in the list. First one is N, that's A. Then we got U, cancel. If I spell it wrong, I apologize. Spelling is not my strongest point. Ingredient. as long as they're not shown, anything that's not shown to the player, which these won't necessarily be. Spelling doesn't matter as long as you can read it, really. Don't foot over it. Container. Contain. And you can see where this is going. Apply. Answer ends. Okay, so these will do for now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Make sure you save it. Close it. Back to our game GA base data asset. We're going to add a new variable and we're going to call it item type. And we're going to make it of that E underscore item types. Okay, so let me just double check, make sure I've not missed anything. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 variables. What I'm going to do though is just for my own sense, I'm going to drag this above this mesh here, just so that's the top category. It makes more sense to me. We could go ahead and put these in categories here, but there's not that many and they're all pretty well of the same category, so no point in this particular asset. Up to you if you want to do it. Okay, so we've done, we make sure we compile and save this, and we go ahead and we close this. And we're going to make our first base actor in this video, and we'll probably end the video after making that. So we're going to make our parent of parents. Okay, this is the real bottom hierarchy, but the good thing about this is any essential information that we know that nearly all or all of your actors in your game are going to have to use, we can put in here. It saves us having to write the code time after time after time. However, there are going to be times in different actors that you want that same event to do something completely different to what is standard for the rest of the other items. Actually, a prime example of that in the game was the toaster. I'm using the left mouse, but I could quite easily use the E key. Now, mostly in the E key, it picks up the item. In this one, it doesn't. Okay, so what you then do is you override the function. Basically, you write the function in that specific blueprint, and it will read yours first, as long as you don't call the parent code. If you call the parent code, it will do the parent code, then it will do your code, or it will do your code, then the parent, depending on the order you put it. And sometimes you want it to do both. You want it to do a little bit extra, especially on things like begin play and other items like that. Okay, I'm going to be doing a lot of explaining in this series because a lot of it's in depth. We're going to be using physics-based, and there's a lot of reasons why we do things in physics-based when we don't necessarily do it in other things. And there's going to be reasons why I've chosen to do things one way when there are schools of different ways of doing it. And if you think there's a better way of doing it than I'm doing it, put a comment, send me a message on Discord. I'm quite happy to look at it, and I might go, oh, never thought of that. We don't know everything. You know, we're all learning. Unreal is continually changing. We're all learning as we go along. So you know, there's some things I don't know. I'm not good at materials, and I'm definitely not good at 3D modeling and animations, any of that side of things. So I find them a little bit difficult. I often have to get people to help me for those, especially the animations and the 3D modeling. I can muddle my way through materials using good old YouTube and now AI, but most of the time, you know, I tend to use fairly simple materials in my projects. I wish I did know more. Right, so without waffling too much more, we're going to go back to our base folder, our blueprints folder. We're going to make a new folder. We're going to call this parent blueprints, because there's going to be more than one, because obviously we've got our base one, and then we're going to have children of that, and then our things that we actually use in the world are going to be children of that. Okay, so the first thing we'll do is right click, make a new blueprint class. We'll just type actor. We don't want to possess anything on here. And for my own use, up to how you name it, I put BPP for the parents, blueprint parent. Okay, then I know when I'm looking for them, especially in a list of actors when you want to choose something, I need to use a parent for anything, or for their type, I can find it. So we're going to call it, and we're going to call it base actor, base, the basic one. So this means it's the base of them all. Okay, so make sure we save it. We can open it up first and give it a quick compile and save. Make sure it's clean. Switch here, and this one is going to have a few things, but one of the first things that I will do is in our class settings, I believe it is, under advanced, under your class options, you've got here generate abstract class. Okay, whether or not the blueprints class is abstract class or not. Basically, this means we can't actually drag this in the world and change it in any other way and make it separate. We can change it, but we can't drag it in the world and then change stuff on instances of. This is literally for other blueprints to be made children of. And to prove that, if we click on that, it won't let me look. We can't drag it in the world. If I turn that off, compile it again, you can see I can. See, I'm not in the right thing. There you go. I can drop it in the world, yeah, just like any other actor, but we don't want that. So we can generate abstract class to stop us doing that by mistake. Okay, so what have we got in here? We got a few variables, but not that many. Because we don't need that many for this particular one. So the first one we've got is data asset. Pretty well, all of our actors will have a data asset attached to them. And we're going to make that data asset from the base one we just made. So DA base. And we're going to select object reference. Okay. And we're going to put two, which will become clear later on, because it's the base actor with two more variables that we're going to have. Has been dropped. Mark. Type Boolean. Pretty self-explanatory. We're checking whether the item has been dropped. And this one, hold close. Question mark. Also a Boolean. And this one is used for when we're using a physics handle, it moves the point to which we're anchored at closer to the player. So the items, especially smaller items, are actually closer to you. For like using a knife, it makes it a little bit easier. The gameplay, there's different ways we can do it, but that's the way I've chosen to use. So we've got a Boolean that we check when we grab something, and so it positions where it is in the world. Okay. And function wise, we have none. But interfaces, we have quite a few. Now we'll be leveraging quite a few interfaces in this project. Because It's the best way to communicate, of course, without having to hard code what actor that is. And because we're using different classes, when we interact with it, we just want to know what we are going to interact with and let the interface do the work for us. And inside the parent class of that particular actor, we can have different code, and we can even override that again in the actual blueprint of the actor, the child of the child. So let's go ahead now, compile this. I'm going to leave it open for a minute, doesn't matter. Go to our drawer, go to our blueprints folder, make a new folder. We're going to call this interfaces. Let's keep blueprint software, blueprint stuff. Open this folder up. Again, we're just scrolling down to our blueprint. We're going to look for a blueprint interface. And we're going to call this one BPI underscore interact. And we're going to make we'll just duplicate it because it's empty. Duplicate that. We're going to call it BPI underscore game base. Now we've got those, compile them. We can go to our class settings. Okay, for those again who don't know what an interface is, it's just a way of communicating with a different blueprint of a different class, an actor. All blueprints pretty well that we put in the world, all items we put in the world are actors. Even the player is an actor of sorts. So what you do is sometimes you see people saying cast to the player, cast to the stove, cast to the fridge, cast to the weapon. Cast to the weapon, not cast to the weapon. Casting gives us a hard reference. We don't want a hard reference. Your player or an item in the game could have a lot of complex meshes, especially things like characters and players with skeletal meshes. So they become quite a big blueprint in their own right. So if we cast to it and have a hard reference to it, which as soon as you cast to it, you get a hard reference. And one day I'll do a little short video on that, but there are plenty of people that have done them online. Go check it out on YouTube. If you cast to it, it makes your blueprint hold all the information from the blueprint that you've just cast to. So, for example, if we cast to our player character, it will then bring all the information through. Now, if you need to cast to a specific thing like a character, because you want to get the component, the movement component, you can cast to the character class. It doesn't bring the skeletal mesh with it, doesn't bring everything else that's in your player character. Or you could cast to a pawn. I'm not sure. Yeah, pawn should have movement component, so you can cast a movement pawn and get movement component from that, even less, depending on what degree you need to get. So be thoughtful when using casts. They have their purposes, and sometimes you need to, especially when you're dealing with child actors inside an actor, which we will be doing a little bit later. It's the only way you can get them. But sometimes, well, unless you want to write another interface. Whereas using an interface, it doesn't care. It's just like you plug in actor. It could be of anything: character, jug actor, weapon actor, cupboard actor. It doesn't matter what it is, what the blueprint name is, and what the class is, as long as it derives from actor. And basically, it will run the code. If it hasn't got that interface, it doesn't care, it doesn't do anything, it doesn't cost you any performance, no code to run, it doesn't throw up any errors. So it's quite a safe and good method of communicating between blueprints. Just sometimes a little bit fiddly to set up. Okay, so let's go ahead, and in these we're just going to do, sorry, we were going to set them in here. So to set the blueprint to, sorry, the interface to your blueprint, go to class settings up the top here, scroll all the way down to the bottom. If we don't see it, look for implemented interfaces. You see at the moment it says no interfaces, so we're going to add them. Type in our BPI. You see we've got 2 here, again based on our interact. We're going to add them both. You have to do them individually. Now the good thing about this is, okay, we've already got interact. Okay, basic. Good thing about this is, if there's nothing in them, it doesn't put anything extra in here. You can see there's nothing here on this side about anything different. However, as soon as we put stuff in these, it gives us some functions we can use. So let's just quickly go ahead and do the interaction one. Okay. Don't mind making the video a little bit longer. So we want a function. Now this one, people often comment to me about this. They think it's a stupid name, but especially when I don't spell it right. But it's something I use, and I just prefer to use it. Do something. So it doesn't mean what do anything. Yeah. So we're going to have that one. And we want now a few more. We're going to say, I'm going to call it event scroll. So when we use our scroll wheel, we can call this, say, event left click. Okay. What am I doing? Left click. We'll do another one. Event right click. I'm going to do one more. Drop item. Okay. And the beauty about these is we can add them, take them away, change them, modify them, do what we like to the names of these functions and the inputs and the outputs, so on and so forth. And it doesn't cause any problems. Okay. Okay, you might get saying, oh, okay, you've deleted this one, it's no longer in the blueprint. Fine, just find where you put it, you don't use it anymore. But if you don't delete it, you realize you're not going to use it. So let's just check on inputs and outputs. So we'll start with do something. There are no inputs or outputs needed on that one. Event scroll. We want to know how much the scroll value is, so we're going to put an input on there. We could call it value, and it's going to be type float. And you can see this is sort of grayed out here. It means we cannot edit, we cannot make the function here. These are just calls or interfaces to that function. Event left click. I put an input on here, and this is type Boolean. I'm just going to call it value again, just to know we can change things depending on what it is. Right click doesn't have anything, and drop item. Double check. And drop item doesn't have anything. So we make sure we compile it, save it. We can go ahead and close that. Now if we go back to our game base here, now we look here on our left hand side, all of a sudden we have this new group here, interfaces. Drop down, and here they all are. Okay, ready for us to use when we need them. Okay, we're not going to be doing anything with them right now. We'll continue with that on the next video. While we're in here, let's just set up the other interface, which was the game base. The game base has quite a few functions in it. Oh, I just opened up the wrong one. There we go. So we're going to start with add a function here. We're going to start with, I like to use give, but you can use get. Has been dropped. Two P's and dropped. Now this one is used for seeing whether the item has been dropped, because we may need it in some other things to know whether something's been dropped. I think I used it in the toaster to find out whether the bread has been dropped, so it could fire off another event. So quite handy. Now this one needs an output, so we go ahead on the outputs, type boolean is fine, and we can say it has been. What is me with the capitals? Has been dropped. Question mark. Okay. Next one. This one I don't think I've used it, but we're going to add it in. No, we're going to leave it out because we can add it in later if I find out. I'm working from my prototype project on this for the YouTube, so some of these here we may not use, but ones I know we're using, we're going to fill in. We're going to add another one. We're going to call this one give data. Data, what data? Any data you want to add in, basically. So we're going to have something called a grab point, and this interface is mostly used when we're actually picking stuff up. And the grab point is a primitive. Sorry. Primitive component object reference. We're going to have another output. This is going to be item mess. And this is of type static mesh, again object reference. We're going to have a couple more, and we're going to call this location, not location, location. This is a vector because all locations in the game are normally vectors, or whatever. Transform, which is a combination of a location vector, rotation vector, and a scale vector, or rotation rotator, which is still a form vector. And then we're going to have rotation. And that's of type rotator. Why am I not just using transform? Because sometimes transform causes problems. If there's something wrong with the scale, so we don't bother with it unless we need to. So for this one, we're just using location and rotation. Okay, and because this is a game based one, this has got some really wonderful things on it. Technically, this one could have gone on another one, but we'll leave it here for now. We'll move it later. And we'll say that is pouring, because maybe we're not, maybe we're pouring from something that's not a container, we're pouring from something else. This has an input, is pouring, question mark, and I'll type boolean. Nice and simple. I like to compile it, especially because I'm using the preview version of Unreal 5.7. Okay. I think I've stopped using this one, but again, we can always remove it if needs be. Give handle offset. Having some different ways of thinking about doing things. And this is of type transform. I'm just going to call it offset or handle offset. And the last one, oh no, we've got the last two. This one again, we can set the keys, but I made this separate so we didn't have to keep bringing in such a big node all the time. It's just a convenience thing. So this is give handle mesh, and it's a static mesh component in the output. Yes, static mesh component. Oh, what's wrong with today? Right. Static mesh component, make sure we get the right one. We're going to call this mesh. That's simple. I'm going to double check on, I've got a feeling I've checked the wrong one. Yes. I'm going to give data one. Just giving it static mesh. We want static mesh component. Okay. Because we won't be able to plug it in when we want to later. And the last one we're going to have on here, function get data asset, and that's an output of DA base, our base asset, and that's it. What I may well do here, just to show you how it works, we're going to change the category of these. So we're going to change the category to these, and we're going to say, double click in here and just call it base. You see it's moved up there. So we're going to go ahead and do it. Unfortunately, we can't select many. We've got to do them individually. I'm going to quickly do this. And I'll show you why I do that in a minute. And then also we're going to go ahead and we're going to open up our Interact. And we're going to do the same thing here. And we're going to call this Interact. So you can have categories within inside categories as well. And I'll show you why I'm doing this, just to make you understand as we're going along where we're calling this from, what interface we're calling something from, because sometimes you need to know. Okay, we'll go ahead and close these. Oop. And if we go back to our base parent now, we have our interfaces, but here you see we've got these two categories instead of just one list. So all of our Interact stuff's under that one. All the new ones we've just done is under here. You see some of these are yellow, some are grey. These ones are all yellow. Basically anything with an output is grey, so it becomes like a function. Anything that's yellow has no output, only an input, so it's more like using an event, like a custom event or anything like that. Okay, so I'm going to wrap this up. This video's been nearly an hour. I was hoping it could be a bit shorter, but never mind. So in this base one, we've basically set up our component. So we've set up our project. we've set up our first base blueprint class, we set up a folder structure, and we set up a parent blueprint class and a parent data asset. Next video is going to be a little bit more the same, I'm afraid. We're just going to set up all the other parents as we need them. Okay, and also any meshes that I am using in the game, if I can, I will put the links in the description for the video that we're using them in. Some of them I made myself, and I can even give you put a link in my Google Drive for that one. But others, like a lot of the foods and so on and so forth, you'd have to just do a search on the various sites like Sketchfab and so on, and grab something that attracts your attention. If it needs to be a very specific mesh for a certain reason, I will tell you why. But it doesn't mean you have to use the same one as me. It just means that you have to find something that has the same features on it. For example, the toaster that you saw, you need one that lever is a separate mesh. Either that, or you need to have the ability to go into somewhere like Blender and make that a separate mesh. Okay, so thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please like and subscribe. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. If you really like my work, consider joining my Patreon or buying me a coffee. The links are in the description of the video. And I hope to see you in the next one. Thank you. Goodbye.